showing up today feels like a whole different type of nerves than yesterday. So, you know how I've heard it before where it's like close the gap of time between the idea and the execution. This is true in so many ways, but especially today, I had a thought earlier of I had a persistent thought where I was like, oh, like I would like to hop on and talk about that, because the thought was staying in my mind. And then the way I found so many other things to do in between having a thought of like I want to do that and now, um, which is not a problem in and of itself, but is not helpful in terms that yes, I had space to think about it more and to, be what are my real thoughts on this? But at the same time, it created so much space for doubt and worry and fear in in the time taken to think about it, and it was really obvious to me. So I'm happy that I'm doing this now. It's probably been, I don't know, give or take 4 or 5 hours since I thought this. And the thought was that I saw, well, pause. Um, Yesterday, I talked about how I would go back on all the things I was referencing before on my wall about, oh, I don't know if you noticed from yesterday. I'm always trying to get the thing right. There's a new section. Yay! Look at that. Yeah, there were only 3, now there's 4 beach because progress has been made. Progress has been made. Um, Very exciting. So I was like, I'm gonna go back and all the days that I had progressed and go back over and comb through and show y'all this process of getting to this point. Um, and it's not that I'm not going to do that. It's that the only way I was able to show up each of those days was by, for me, removing the pressure of needing to do a specific thing, because my goal with this is far reaching. Uh, and I think a lot of like freelance entrepreneur people can relate to like, okay, what's important, what needs to be done, and it's like everything. So what I have learned is that the most important thing is to show up, even if it's not like perfectly. And sometimes perfectly is, well, the next most ideal perfect step to move this forward is XYZ. But for me at least, I've learned that I'm not gonna, I will resist that next step if I'm, it's almost like an inner rebelliousness. Like that's how it's showing up. And I'm like, I don't want to do that exact next step, and create problems for myself. So will I always show up in a very specific way? No. Will I show up? Yes. So today, not doing that and doing another one of these because this feels better and because my intuition said so. I saw a thing online today. What was, oh, of course, now I need to say it. The wording was, God, I've thought of this for hours. And now the 1 3-word phrase is escaping me. It's like when I used to take a test, study for days and days and days, and I'd get to the test and black out. There's a term for that in learning about ADHD. It's the worst. It was something along the lines of your expectations create your reality. It might have even been shorter than that, but that's what it was saying. And that really stuck with me. And one of my favorite things about all things spirituality, metaphysics, quantum leaping, manifestation, da da da. One of my favorite things about it is, and my curiosity for it never ends, because everything is everything. And so I'm able to learn the same thing over and over and over and over and over again in a different way. And each time I do, it leads to deeper understanding, because I feel like sometimes in when it comes to all these types of subjects and understandings and whatnot, one thing that comes up often is like, for example, affirmations, where it's like how, let's say, for example, someone feels ugly. Saying, I'm beautiful, it's like, what do you mean? I'm not just gonna like say that and feel better. And you're right. You're right, and that goes for a lot of things, where it's like, how am I supposed to go from here to here? That doesn't make sense to me, and it feels fake, and it makes me, if a lot of times, feel worse. So yeah, I when I saw your expectations create your reality, I was like, wow. And I started thinking about all of the different ways that is true. And then it got me also thinking about all of the ways where I'm like, well, hold on, what about all the times where I told myself, or I had expectations and they didn't come true? And so I've been thinking about this for hours. And I don't have I don't have an outline or anything planned in order to talk about this, so bear with me. I'm glad that today I have music. Today I have piano. But when I think about how our expectations create our reality, it felt like a different way of explaining concepts that are harder to bridge. And also feels like it explained why so many things in my life did not go the way I expected them to. And that is because a lot of times our expectations are not they're not aligned with like our conscious thought and our subconscious thought. And at a simple level, it's like, okay, if I expect, let's use this for example, perfect, bam, this, quantum camp, this process, this long, far-reaching process. When I think about quantum camp now, I think about how I expect it to be fruitful for me and for other people. But the degree to which I feel like and believe and understand that quantum camp is both beneficial for me and for other people, it's a much deeper degree now than it was before. And so when I think about our expectations, I'm like, well, what does it take to get to a point of expectation? And it's that repetition. So it's like at a base level, it's like, I expect that this will be a good thing in the right time, in the right way, for the good of all. I am fully trusting of that at like a basic level. And I can just take that statement, I can take that understanding, and I can just run with it. And at so many other junctures, I did not have this degree of conviction. And so, yeah, like I was saying before, what I love about this stuff is in that everything is everything. It's that the simplest things are the most complex. And I think that's also where me and other people tend to get really frustrated. Because it's like, what do you mean just be? Like, what the hell? You're making it sound so simple, and it's not that simple. And it almost evokes in us like a, don't make it sound so simple when it's not so simple. How dare you? Because obviously I want things to be XYZ kind of way, and they're not. And oh, goodness. It's so funny. There's so much nuance to it. Oh goodness. Time to mute that. So much nuance to it. And I think that's what I love the most, is the nuance of it. It's like, well, how, asking myself questions like, okay, what expectations have I created in my life? Like, what blessings, what abundance do I have in my life? And how does the role of like my own expectations play into the fact that it exists in my life? It's a lot about questions. Like, why do I have this expectation that this is going to be fruitful? Why do I have other expectations that things aren't going to work out or are not going to be beneficial for me in one way or another? Why is my conviction stronger with some things than other things? And I think that these are the types of questions where in spiritual communities, people are like, you're just, it's too woo, because we're not getting into the nitty-gritty of it. So with Quantum Camp, with expectations, for me, using myself as an example, the goal for me, and it has been increasing, is that it's about increasing the degree of certainty that I have. One thing that I found myself saying over this past year is that whatever you believe is true. And I really mean that. I really mean that. Whatever you believe is true, and it really has to do with the degree of certainty. The way I want to get into the mechanics of this so bad. I don't like just saying stuff. I want it to make sense. Highly recommend listening to, I've been listening to the audiobook, but it's a real book, A Happy Pocket Full of Money. I listened to it on 0.8 because I'm like, why are you talking so fast? Who sped you up? I listened to it on 0.8. But if you want to get into the like deep dive quantum mechanics of everything, dude gets hella scientific. And then there are other chapters that more so dive into the concepts and then just touching on the science to like make it make sense. So, but with that said, increasing certainty for me about this, I know that the more that I believe and trust that this is going to be a thing, how do I increase that belief? Okay, so for me, increasing the belief this is going to be a thing meant that, like, in making it so I expect it to be a thing, I had to bring it from somewhere in my mind to somewhere in my conscious reality. So making it so that, because we have a gazillion thoughts a day, so many desires, so many wants, so many conscious and subconscious thoughts about all of these things. And so as someone who, like a lot of different things, I'm like, well, how do I make sure that this doesn't just become another thing by the wayside? How can I like truly expect it? And that was by bringing it to the forefront of my experience. So a big aspect of that was creating this corner. This corner was a huge helpful thing for me. I think everyone's going to have their own process with whatever they're doing. And creating this corner was super helpful because I can't miss it. When I walk in my office and, usually just go to sit down at my desk, I walk in here and the expectations of the room communicate desk, and then everything else just felt like storage. And now when I walk in, I'm like, quantum camp corner. Do I want to do quantum camp stuff or work stuff right now? I can't miss this when I walk in. The door is there. I cannot miss this. So it's creating the expectation, well, you're going to show up, right? You're going to come to the corner at some point, right? And on top of that, having these rows of accountability notes on my wall, it's like, you're going to add another thing to the wall, right? So that's been really helpful for me. That's been really helpful for me in as far as creating positive expectations around something I want to do. I need to bring it where it doesn't previously exist. And I really think that this applies to things so different than this. I think about how I expect to be treated. How I expect to be treated by different types of people in different types of scenarios. And all of the different factors that go into that. So many different factors that go into that. And like this subject matter expectations that I'm talking about, as I was thinking about it earlier, I was like, oh my goodness. I come to these conclusions and I'm like, wow, I'm really just reinventing the wheel. For some reason or another, when I have been taught different things in my life, I struggle to take them at face value. I struggle to be like, okay, that's the way it is. It's like I need to like get the thing and pull it apart into like 50 different pieces, and from there put it back together. Like, but why? And then I'm like, oh, and then a very, very, very simple concept that everyone else seems to have internalized makes sense to me for the first time. For example, goals. This audiobook has a chapter on goals, and I have not ever not really, not in a major way, I have not been someone who sets goals. And it's frustrated me for so much of my life because I'd like to be. I'd like to be the type of person who could be like, all right, I'm going to do XYZ things this year. I'm going to accomplish this. I'm going to strive for this. But goals never made sense to me. They never did. And so because of that, I refrained from setting them. Unconsciously, it was more than just like, didn't make sense to me. It didn't make sense to me for reasons. It didn't make sense to me for so many reasons. I wanted to, and I understand now. And when I listened to this and it broke down the mechanics of goals, it talked about goals in a way I've never heard about in my entire life. Once he said, set 5,000 goals, I was like, all right, I'm locked in. What did you just say, reverse? Going back, let's listen to this again. What was that? So you can, of course, listen to that on your own time. But yeah, I've never been someone who sets goals. And because of that, I haven't accomplished as much as I definitely could have by this time in my life. I'm 31, turning 32 in 2 months. It's crazy. And a big part of me, realizes that I did not set goals because I did not inherently believe that if I set a goal, I would stick to it. And because I did not want to experience disappointment of not meeting the goal, I just didn't make the goal. And I feel like I probably spoke on this yesterday. There's going to be a lot of things I repeat. There's going to be a lot of things I repeat. But when you're someone who does a lot of different things, and maybe you don't do those things in a perfectly systematic way, it is going to be, it has the potential to become something where you don't strive anymore, because the excitement for doing the thing is dampened by the fear of not following through. Why try if it's not going to work out anyways? And this is not clearly, obviously, not the mentality to have. What? You know, it's like, believe in yourself. It's like, okay, cool, what does that mean? How do you do it? The hell are you talking about? Now, if you have a self-concept that's rooted, and I'm the type of person who does what I said, who does what I say I'm going to do, then it's easier. You can set a goal and be like, I'm going to do that one way or another. Many years ago, 2019, I watched a YouTube video after a tough time in life that was like, for me. It was these two random people, like, in the forest or something, talking. I don't know. It's just one of those things where it just goes to the next video and I'm like, all right, I guess I'm watching this now. And they were talking about how I'm not even going to go into it. The main thing I took from it, and what I think that was their main point, is that integrity unlocks all chakras. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And it made me think of, I'm like, okay, so when we do what we say we're going to do, it, aligns us. And therefore, my lack of integrity is a deep contributor towards how good I felt about myself and my ability to move through the world in the way that I wanted to. So I made a checklist. Well, they encouraged, make a list of everything. It was crazy. They're like, everything you ever said you're gonna do, and write all of those down and do them to the best of your ability. Either do them all, or go through that list and consciously decide, I am no longer going to do this. Or like, especially if one of those things was like, for some reason, not possible anymore. It's like, consciously release that thing to yourself. Like, I am releasing this as a thing that I'm not going to do. Maybe I'm not in contact with this person anymore that I was going to do it with or do it for, or I can't get in contact with them anymore, or this thing I said I was going to do no longer aligns with the direction I had, whatever it is. This concept has come back into my life through something I learned last year. I don't know if it was a podcast, I don't know what it was, but it was something where this woman was talking about energy leaks. And it's basically the same thing. It's like, the thing that you are not doing, go ahead and consciously release it or interact with it. And that was really helpful, because I'm like, wow, look at all of the ways where my energy is pulled throughout each day, thinking about all the things that I could be doing, well, not even could be doing, should be doing, said I was going to do, all of the items that I'm keeping around for one day, or maybe I'm chronically terrible with that. As someone who loves to tinker with, be like, what can be made from these things? So yeah, thinking about integrity, thinking about energy leaks, all of this stuff is so that we can be more in alignment with who we say we are and who we know we want to be, right? So as it pertains to expectations, it is much easier to maintain an expectation if that expectation is in alignment with who you are. And it can be as simple as just deciding. There's nothing stopping us from saying, I am this person. But there can be a lot in the way of as far as stopping us when it comes to saying, I am this person and believing it. If there is a lack of integrity in how we move, in how we show up for ourselves, and for other people, like, yeah. So I think it's really, really fascinating, because I feel like I've gone through so much of my life and I've looked around and I'm like, this type of thing always happens for that type of person, and why? I want it more. But we go back to thinking about how wanting is just saying, I don't have. So in all of this, as we are, coming into alignment and manifesting and all of these things, reminding ourselves that we already have it, and how can we move closer to aligning ourselves with that thing. So a lot of the Happy Pocket Full of Money audiobook, hold on, there goes the thought. If I focus on it too hard, it won't come back. Aligning ourselves with that thing. So it is more about saying, I am, than I want, or I will be, or I hope. It is much more about that. And saying those I am statements, because the only moment that exists is now. If time doesn't exist, there's only now. So saying those I am statements is critical, because manifestation can only happen in the now. It comes down to faith, it comes down to believing, it comes down to a whole bunch of all that kind of stuff. And when we think that things can only happen in a certain way, in a certain time, or after this or that or the other, it puts limits on us. It slows us down. But when we move forward, like, boldly and faithfully, then having those expectations for how we want our life to be becomes a lot easier. When we aren't expending so much of our energy towards fear and towards doubt. Like, if you imagine 10 lanes and you're moving forward, each lane is a thought. Each lane is a thought, and you're having all these different thoughts. The speed in which those pieces along those different lanes, those thoughts, as they manifest into whatever are going to go, is going to be, it's scattered. It's all over the place. It's too much. But if we bring it down to one lane, ideally, one track-minded vibe, then we're gonna make a lot of progress a lot faster. So for me, as far as bringing it back to, like, okay, how have I created expectations that feel like something I can really stand on? In terms of Quantum Camp, is taking all of my thoughts. Oh my goodness, the doubting is so much. The doubting, the reasoning, so much. Taking, just thinking about them, like, taking all of those thoughts and being like, these thoughts are not helpful for creating what I said I'm going to create, for doing what I said I'm going to do. If I am to believe that Quantum Camp is going to manifest into everything that I desire it to be, it is so unhelpful for me to spend much time thinking about all of the reasons why it would not work out, because there are most of them are me. Most of them are me. So when I think about all of the ways that I could sabotage this process, when I think about all the other times I haven't shown up for things, when I think about certain resources or a lack of resources, when I think about how I'm being perceived, as far as like, so many different things. All of those are not helpful. Those thoughts are not helpful to the goal. It is not necessary. To the degree that I've started recently, one of my recent modalities for getting my mind right, is imagining my mind like a radio. And because I can be a compulsive thinker, it's been about turning the station. Sometimes I will have a thought, and I've had that thought so many times that I'm able, it's with my intention of like, girl, get your mind right, I've had that thought so many times that I'm like, okay, if I have the discipline to catch it, like, okay, I know that having this thought, I know what the next thought is, and the next thought, and the next thought, and the next thought, and the next thought, and and it's like, it's been encouraging to witness the thought, catch it, and be like, this is valid. And this is a nuanced topic, so chill. But be like, all right, this is specifically talking about repetitive thought patterns. When I can have a thought and I know the thoughts that it's going to lead to, I'm like, all right, we need to go ahead and pull back. Like, okay, because if thoughts lead to feelings, and feelings lead to, actions, and actions, I'm like, what is this leading to? So it's been nice to have I'm in the process of cultivating the discipline of being like, pause, pause. Let me change the station. Let me change the station. If this thought leads to all those thoughts, and I can damn near predict exactly how all these thoughts are going to make me feel and how it's going to end, if you someone with a lot of if you have some Mercury ruled, quite a bit of Mercury ruled things in your chart, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The ruminations of it all. So if I can see the way that these thoughts are going to go, let me just try. Let's say I'm on whatever the hell station, and that station is the station where, I don't know, like K98 point whatever, I'm not enough. I can't do it. Whatever it is, I'm not the type of person who can make this happen. I don't have support. I'm not enough in any other way. So the channel's called I'm Not Enough. And that leads to so many thoughts. If I can reel it in, and I think it's hard because thoughts that are not positive towards ourselves feed our ego. So it's an ego battle. The ego be strong. The ego be strong, and I think it's really easy to forget that when we are not thinking positively about ourselves, and we're going down a shame spiral, that's the ego. You'd be like, what? No, I'm not egotistical. I hate myself. Okay, that's a huge ego. That's a huge ego. So I'm like, okay, can I pause and change the channel? Let me think. I'm like, I've felt good about myself before. I've felt positive before. What did those thoughts start with? I think the easiest one is just like a gratitude thing. Like, okay, what's going right? What do I like about myself? And that has its own spiral. I'm like, all right, I'm the time you need to do it is the time you least want to do it. Oh my goodness. When you need to do it, you do not be wanting to do it, but it is so necessary. It's like, okay, I'm feeling shitty. Okay, this, that, the other. I list the things in my physical space that I'm appreciative of. I think of anything that's gone right that day, anything that's gone right that year, the people in my life who are positive influences and make me feel good about myself, the accomplishments that I've had, the food I had that day, anything. It's like, can I get in another spiral? What's good about this is that it then, the more times you do it, creates an expectation that in the future, when you encounter that negative thought, you can now think, do I have it in me? Do I have the gumption? Do I have the will? Do I have the ability? Do I have the agency to choose to not entertain this thought and give it so much motherfucking power? Yes. Yes. Repetition. Who am I? Is there proof? And so I think these things spiral. Creating proof for ourselves helps create expectations. Some things are expectations because they are social constructs. Some things are expectations because of how our family was, because of how our upbringing was, because of how things have been recently, whatever it is. So when it comes to our reality is a reflection of our expectations, or we're going to cultivate the reality that we expect, whatever, all these things. I think that, and the expectation being a representation of who am I? Who am I? What am I doing? What do I want? What do I want to do? How does my reality work? How can we merge the conscious and unconscious mind to play with this? And so I really liked when I heard that earlier today about expectations, because I was like, oh, this really helps me reframe something I know and have learned and continue to be learning. I love this way of putting it because it makes it feel more tangible. And I think that that's what I'm really passionate about, is like the agency, cultivating a feeling of agency, not feeling like a victim of life, but feeling like a conscious creator of my life. I'm not satisfied with hearing that this is just the way it is. Like, what do you mean? How could this be the only way that things are when there's so much like magic in and around everything? Like, how can you just say that, And it's very discouraging to feel like you can't change things in your life. You can't change yourself. You can't be more. You can't whatever. It's very discouraging. It's depressing. It sucks. And so such a driving force for me being interested in all of these things is, I can actually expect more. I can expect better. I can have hope. I can hope for a better future. And all of these things will, how do you put it? The more I expect them, the more they show up. This goes on an individual level, and this goes on a collective level. I was thinking, all right, piano, you're a little too loud for me. I'm trying to focus. Meanwhile, it's like a job. So funny. But yes, on an individual and collective level, this is so true. I love all of the many examples out there of, in every way, shape, and form, groups of people coming together with one singular intention, creating one expectation, and the way it comes through, the way it comes through is so magical, and it's just about the depth of belief. The more people that believe in something, the more it seems to be true. That's why it can be hard to believe things that other people don't believe, or have hope when other people have reasons to be like, why are you even attempting to hope for that? Even though that's just a projection of their own fear and lack of hope. But yes, collectively, when we all believe something, we come to expect it. And that is the power of dreaming together. That is the power of world building together. World building is critical. And last year, it's funny, I developed the term world building for myself and started doing a lot of research on it. And I mostly went in doing that, ran into just people who made video games, because they're like, here's our character and building out the world for it. Like especially like fantasy video games and stuff like that. That's what I came across the most, and I couldn't find a whole lot on world building. And then since then, the way I have seen it skyrocket in the collective consciousness. I am not the only one who feels this way. It is now a term that I see frequently, and I love it. Because there's no scarcity of world builders. We all should be world builders in our life. And what I love about the concept is that it is rooted in agency, and it is rooted in faith. If we can all dream together, if we can all set expectations around how the world can be a more pleasant place for us all, then the higher chance we're gonna get there. And there are going to always be so many people with so many reasons that are so valid as to why these realities that are being dreamed up are not possible, plausible, or able to happen in any amount of time that we'll be around for. And that is not helpful. That is not helpful. The goal is to be able to achieve these things. And choosing not to believe in things that we want and things that are good for us is just a mentality that is rooted in fear, rooted in a lack of courage, rooted in, I don't want to dream for this thing because if it doesn't happen, I'm going to feel stupid. What's the alternative? Literally, what's the alternative? The alternative to believing that all these things are not possible on a collective level, believing that things are not possible on our own individual level, because everything starts with us individually. If we can't dream it for ourselves, we can't dream it for everyone, and vice versa. If we cannot create this set of expectations, then we can't fucking do anything. Like it's so important that this is this is a skill, this is a practice, this is a way of being that requires a lot of gumption. But we are at such a turning point in society. We are at such a turning. It is a time to be alive. It was the best of times and the worst of times. It is imperative. We absolutely must dare to dream. We must dare to believe. Otherwise, the alternative, y'all cool giving up? Because I'm not. You can just live like that? You want to live like that? Okay. Okay. I might give up for a moment or two. I might give up for a night. it really does take a lot of courage, especially as someone, and we've all been there, like having, the dark night of the soul. I be having them nights. Woo! The nights are had. And whenever I have those nights, I'm like, why did I dare to dream again? Am I a fucking idiot? Why would I dare to dream big? And then my ego has a field day. My ego has a field day spiraling about, how dare you dream when you know that that's not possible for you. Goodness gracious. It's pretty pathetic, honestly. And that sounds harsh, but I'm gonna stand on it because, woo! I have those nights, and when I'm in that headspace, it feels so valid. It feels so real. I have so many thoughts to back it up. When I do finally get out of that headspace, I'm like, oh my goodness, I really got carried away. But it does take a lot. It does take a lot of courage specifically to be positive again. I think that's why really positive people trigger the shit out of people, because it's like, it's, reflection, projection, the whole thing. A lot of people who are, misers look at people who are very positive the majority of the time and being like, they're faking it, they're lying. And it's like, yo, that person is very strong. That person is very audacious. That person has a lot of courage to allow themselves to expect that life can be good. Life can be good. And if we can take seriously the practice of believing, of trusting, of building our faith in ourselves and with other people. But it's a choice, it's a decision, it's a choice. If we can do that, we can do anything, man. We can do anything. We can do anything. Part of me knows when I go to look at the footage, the ways I documented myself getting into all of this, just these past few weeks. Yo, there are, especially the first day, when I made this corner and I set up a candle. It was it still during then? Yeah, it was during the blue moon. So I have a blue candle. And so much desire and so much fear and resistance. I'm like, am I really about to commit to something for real right now? Are we sure about the shakiness, the weight that it carried? So much. So intense for me to make that commitment. I'm sure I cried. So much resistance to making a decision, to risking disappointment again. But right now, when it comes to my belief in this, when it comes to creating the expectation that this is going to one day be a whole lot more than me sitting in the corner of my office talking to this laptop camera. All these damn cameras I got, and I'm like, computer. Yes, because I need to remove the blocks towards doing the thing. So much. Woo! I'm like, well, I need to create the expectation. I need to create the belief system that this can exist beyond, like I was talking about yesterday, beyond my notes, my endless clipboards and notepads and everything. Like, this needs to exist in the world. I need to create the belief system that I can show up, that I can push past the inner resistance and the inner voices of not good enough, of what's the point, of are you sure, of maybe after, of like endless. So I feel like this, like expectations, is like truly a topic I can go, how long have I been talking? 50 minutes. Truly a topic I can go on and on and on and on and on about. Like, there's so much more to say when it comes to this. I'm gonna cap it. I'm gonna cap it for today. I also want to say that after my recording last night, which felt like such a big deal to spontaneously go into that recording and publish it and post it on my story, and like, I had to do a lot to be like, we're not gonna think about that too much. We did it, great, awesome, love it, amazing, moving on. But since then, last night, I stayed up late, not anything new, but domain name acquired. Instagram for this acquired. And what's the third thing? I'm like, when I be forgetting. My notes to the rescue. And I realized that in my building up of this, I technically now have 2 people that are on board with helping me in different ways. And that feels so good. It wasn't like, it's been a process, but last night was like a confirmation. Shout out Gemini New Moon. You know, last night was a confirmation of these 2 roles and how they're going to show up and manifest. And I'm looking forward to all of the ways. Like, this feels like the beginning of an adventure. I know without a shadow of a doubt that I will be supported in this process. I know that I don't know the perfect order of operations for making this more actualized. I have all the steps. I don't know the best way. You know, I am not the all-seeing eye. Like, but I do have the expectation. I do have the expectation that push come to shove, so long as I engage with this practice of showing up in this way, showing up in a developmental way, and showing up internally in my beliefs, that there is no way that this won't become what it is supposed to be. Even if what it ends up being is different than what I expected, my grounding baseline in a lot of this is that things are going to happen in the best way, at the best time, for the good of all. So, thank you for being here. Thank you for being with me here on day 2. And I'll see y'all soon. Peace.